to support the amendment by Deputy O'Brien and others in relation to the Aarhus Convention. And I want to make a number of points in relation to it. The Aarhus Convention was ratified way back in 2012. Its purpose was to empower the citizen with three major pillars: access to information, public participation, and access to justice. In my experience as a councillor, and in addition in the Dáil, more than ever, we need the participation of people, ordinary people on the ground, who are not serial objectors, who are not crackpots, who are not cranks. They are people who take a particular interest, thanks be to God, in the environment and in standing up to the narrative that has led to this bill. I want to thank the officials for all of their work. A huge amount of work has gone into this over a number of years. I don't agree with it. I think you're responding to a narrative partly created by yourself, partly created by some in opposition, that the problem with the planning law are serial objectors, cranks, as opposed to the normal people. And that is a narrative that has self-served the governments and self-served those who you've been in league with, which are the developers. And we've seen the catastrophe that that brought on the country. And earlier today, and I won't repeat it, but I just refer to it, the number of planning tribunals alone that followed from that narrative, where people were afraid to open their mouth, and where very courageous people like Michael Smith and the judge who's currently a judge in the High Court took action themselves to speak out and offer a reward for people to come forward. So that was all developer-led, corruption systemic in every level of political life. And then, following a crash, we deplete the planning planning departments completely. I know that from Galway. And we deplete them all over, and then we blame the planning department and Bord Pleanáil for delays. And we don't resource what's there, we don't make it robust, and we don't champion the fact that we're utterly reliant on ordinary people, whether they're members of organisations on Taisce or otherwise, to come forward and highlight, because we have starved the local authorities of resources and funding, and we haven't engendered the spirit of the Aarhus Convention, which is to empower and enable people to come forward. And you have just told us that this legislation is compliant. I see no evidence that it's compliant with the Aarhus Convention that we ratified as far back as 2012. And as has been said already, I have never seen such an array of organisations, from environmental groups to architects to planners, as has been outlined, to the Law Society, highlighting problems. So this legislation, supposedly, which is nearly 1,000 pages, but 840 something pages, with hundreds of amendments to be rammed through in 3 hours, is an insult to the Dáil. It's contemptuous of the democratic process, and it's contemptuous of the people on the ground who've gone to great trouble to raise their objections with us. This piece of legislation will lead to a lot more cases being taken in the courts. You are restricting and removing the ordinary person's right. You absolutely, in terms of the residents' associations, they have to be formed. There's a certain period of time. Please, this is my interpretation of it. I don't sit on a committee, and I would like more time to look at it, and so I'm guided what I'm being told and what I've read myself. This is an absolute insult. It's blatantly against the spirit and the law of the Aarhus Convention that was signed back in 2012. If we were seriously interested in improving the planning laws in Ireland, we would have properly resourced them, made them robust. We wouldn't have put our buddies into Bord Pleanáil and then insult people by changing the word on Bord Pleanáil as if that had anything to do with the let me put it, corruption, the conflicts of interest that were not apparent to those that had conflicts of interest. So I said I'll be short. I will not be supporting this legislation. And I actually think it brings a focus on the utter failure to learn the importance of people being involved in the planning process, which has been repeatedly stated in the courts, as I've said this morning, the trinity of the planning laws: the local authority, the developer, and the person. There's much more I can say, but I said I'd be brief, and I'll stop. Thank you.